Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the number one hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
All right, everyone, let's start off the show right with one of my favorite themes ever. How about that? Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. Today's episode is Early Murray, Meatballs 1979, and Stripes 1981. And that was, of course, the theme for Stripes, and it is so good. Like I said, I say it on the show, that, the Zorro, the Gay Blade, I love those themes. Of course, Star Wars, Superman, I've talked about that, but these are great. Anyway, we have got a new review that I'm going to read. So Much Film Knowledge and Passion for the Cinema by Robbie J. 617. So, of course, this is by Robert Jones, a little inside, but he was the one that was on the last episode, Edgar Wright, which I apologize for that sound being kind of off, but he had his microphone he kept messing with on his phone, hanging from his phone. Anyway. He says, met Philip online through mutual love of film, and he turned me on to his podcast. Quite frankly, I'm a little shocked that he doesn't have a larger following. The guy knows his stuff, and the guests are always interesting. They get into the types of discussions I love to have about film. I always learn something new about films. I thought I knew everything already. Most importantly, the podcast gets me excited about the next movie I'm going to watch. So thank you, Robbie J. And I put up on the Facebook page, he finished his Chuck Norris, and he didn't get to meet Chuck Norris, but Chuck Norris was there, and Chuck Norris got to see the video. They played the video before Chuck Norris walked out on stage, so it was pretty cool. And then some corrections from the last show. This was from Brant. He sent me, he's been on the shows. We did Public Enemies, and we did Gangsters, and we did Allied Forces of World War II. He said, I don't recall you doing a correction, but in your Alien Resurrection episode, you said when Michael Wincott had the gun that killed Brandon Lee in The Crow. It was Michael Massey, who played Funboy, that had it, not Wincott. If you did the correction and I just missed it, disregard. But I did not do that because I could have swore that I read somewhere that it was Michael Wincott, but I probably read Michael and thought Wincott. But it was Michael Massey, which was, that other guy. So if you have anything else that I missed and you want to let me know, or send me an email with recommendations, whatever you want. You want to shit on me, you want to tell me that these intros suck, then let me know. But you send that to mycelluloidheart@gmail.com, and I will respond or read them on the air. And, of course, rate and review us, and I'll read that on the air. So that's groovy to the movie, whatever that means. Anyway, before I get into what I have been watching, I want to tell you about this guy that works for me. So I've talked about this guy before. Sorry, I read that because I was reading it from a script. So this guy, I talked about this guy. He's the one that said, oh, yeah, Charlie Chaplin, and I know I'm picking hairs. I'm picking at, almost movie snobbish type shit, right? But I don't mean to. But some things, when people say that they love film and they're so into it, and the guy's got an online movie website like LFM.com or LAFM.com for film and music, and he doesn't know kind of simple things. which are as follows. This was our conversation from last night. He says, oh, I just saw this movie from the 70s. It was called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Have you ever seen it? And I said, no, that was the 50s. He said, no, it was the one from the 70s by Kubrick. I said, 2001? He said, yeah, that's a great movie. It was on Turner Classic Movies this morning, and it is an amazing film. I said, I know, I own it. He said, okay, just want to let you know. It's like, how can you that's a major film. I understand a lot of people haven't seen it maybe, who, because it's kind of artsy, but how do you miss 2001? How do you name that as Day the Earth Stood Still? Anyway, it cracked me up. So all you film lovers hopefully got a little kick out of that. So now the newest movies I watch at home or in the theater are, so I saw Craig's Wife from 1936. It's one of those with Dorothy, oh my God, how am I drawing a blank? I did the gay directors about her, Dorothy Arzner. And sorry about that, Dorothy Arzner. And this was from 1936. The other one was 33. This is 36. It was really good because it was Rosalind Russell, and she only cared about like her house and her station in life pretty much. And her husband loved her so much, and she didn't really care for him very much. And it was really cool because by the end then she's left like alone, and she has nothing but her house. So it was really cool, really interesting. Then I saw, of course, Murder Mystery on Netflix. Me and the wife were like, what should we watch? She doesn't like to watch my, artsy bullshit or whatever. So she's like, how about that one? I said, okay, because she likes Adam Sandler. So we watched it. It was okay. We did other things while watching it. And then I saw The Wandering Earth, Chinese movie from 2019. And it's on Netflix. And it was really good. I liked it. It was not your stereotype. Like usually Chinese or foreign film, they'll go over the top with their drama, their melodrama and stuff. And this was done just right. And it, had some moments that made me like almost like get giddy, like those hero moments. Toward the end, there was this little girl showed up to help. And she's like just a little girl, but she was there to help. It was very cool. Then I saw Dark Crystal from 1982. Now, I have not seen The Dark Crystal maybe since, I saw it in 82 in the theater. I was 11. And then I saw it like maybe 15 years ago or more. And I remember like, oh, that was interesting. But I wasn't really invested. I think I just rented it when I was managing the video store. And it was, but this time, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And if this prequel is going to be like, oh my God, like they're going to do this whole, it's going to be amazing. Anyway, it'll be really cool. It was really neat. It was epic in its feel, and it was interesting in the way it was made. And Jim Henson had said that he thought that kids should be afraid, that it's good to scare children, which I told Chip on this episode that Joe Merle and him always know the Skeksis. They're afraid of them. Like they just remember that. It's ingrained in their skull. So that's where he said that's good for kids, though, to be a little frightened and, and have it not be too much, but just a little bit scared. So I thought that was cool. That's on Netflix. And some Harold Lloyd shorts from 1918 and 1919 that I saw on the Criterion Channel. And they're pretty good. I don't much care for Harold Lloyd as much. I'm going to watch more of his stuff. I don't like him as much as Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, but he's got some good stuff, got some funny routines that he did, so it's pretty cool. Then I said, I'm going to sit down on Amazon. They got Friday the 13th. This is my first day off last week. I said, I think I'll watch, before I get into this other stuff on Criterion, I'm going to watch one Friday the 13th. I'll watch the first one. Haven't seen it for a while. I think that'll be fun. So I watched Friday the 13th from 1980. And then that ends. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, gee, I got to know when Jason comes around. Like, come on, spoiler alert, the mother did it in the first one. So I said, oh, part 2. Okay. So I watched part 2. Then I'm like, oh my God, well, now I got to know how this continued, like part 3. So then I watched part 3 so part 2 is 81, part 3 in 82. Then I watch part 4, the final chapter from 84. Then I watch A New Beginning. So I remember, which I believe is A New Beginning. They kind of blend together, but it's either, I don't think it's final chapter, but A New Beginning is where they go to the grave with Arnold Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter, and they're going to dig up Jason's body, and he gets electrocuted. And I just remember seeing Arnold Horshack in a movie, and I was like, oh my God, that's Arnold Horshack. That's cool. He's doing other things. And then he never did any other things. I'm sure he did little things, but he just couldn't get out of the Arnold Horshack role, according to myself saying there's Arnold Horshack. Anyway, then I was like, well, now I got to watch 5. So I watch A New Beginning in 85. Then Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives from 1986. And then Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. And then I watched Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan from 89. And that was fun. I liked that one. It was they're on a ship. They're in the high school thing. A lot of people don't like that, but it was fun. Then after that, I was like, okay, now that's all on Amazon, all 8 of those. So anybody want to check those out, please do. Then I was like, well, now I got to go rent the others. So I'll do that later. But anyway, then I saw Triple Threat from 2019. It's like a karate thing with all these people. Sorry, my dog's messing with me. Why am I drawing a blank on these names that I spout out usually? The kid from the guy from Ong Bak, and then the guy from the Raid, and they're in it with this new guy that I never seen that he did pretty good. This Chinese guy. So I thought it was going to be all in Chinese, but it was a little in Chinese and mostly just English or broken English. But anyway, it was good. There wasn't as much fighting in it as I thought there would be. Then I went to the theater. I said, it was Friday. I said, honey, let's go. We planned on seeing Dead Don't Die. So I said, okay. So she was sleeping. We were both kind of just chilling. I was watching movies. She was sleeping. And then I said, honey, we got about an hour. You want to get up and we can go? And she goes, you know what? I'm kind of comfortable. You can go by yourself if you want. It's okay. I said, all right. So I went and saw it. Wore my Bill Murray shirt, of course, and went and saw the movie. And it was good. It's like a dark comedy. And it's kind of a little meta where they're kind of make fun of the movie that they're in a little bit kind of thing. It also totally talks about, us humans that are zombies with their phones. There's the first zombies that show up are like coffee, and they just go to the diner and start drinking coffee because that's what they're used to. And that's what, like, all the zombies will go to Starbucks and, it'd just be hilarious. Anyway, it was good. It's a little different. It's a dark humor, but I liked it. Then I had bought I went to the store and I bought, Stripes. I had to buy Stripes, of course. And I bought An American Werewolf in London. And I said before on the Edgar Wright episode, I said, hey, I've never seen An American Werewolf in London. I think I've only seen the transformation part. So I bought that and I watched it. And it was really good. I remember watching it, and I was like, oh, this is boring when I was younger. And I was like, this is kind of boring. It's supposed to be great. Like, But you watch it, and there's, like, it's just really cool. It's, like, funny. It's, like, him getting with the girl, and, like, and then the end thing with all the cars wrecking and crashing, and, like, in the movie theater. And, it was really good. I really liked it. Then on Criterion, they put out these 2 things that are documentaries. They'll do like a double feature. And they had one thing called Marwan Cole and another one, I forget the name of it, but it's like about in New York City. And this Marwan Call is from 2010. It's a documentary. And if you know Welcome to Marwan, the movie, that's where that movie came from, was this documentary. It's called Marwen Call because of Mark, Wendy, and Colleen is the two girls he likes, Wendy and Colleen. So he got beat up in a bar. If you've seen the trailer for the movie, got beat up in a bar. These guys, like these 3 or 5 guys, kicked the shit out of his head and beat him up, and he was in a medically induced coma for 9 days, and then came out of it, doesn't remember anything. He used to be married, and he used to drink a lot. And now when he came out of this, he doesn't feel like drinking anymore. And he started doing these figures and buying these like either army figures or like he has an old Steve McQueen figure, buys these Barbie dolls. And he made this whole town in his backyard and really detailed, like really cool. And that's his life. Like that's his focus. And then he takes pictures of them. And they're really cool, and I'm going to share one on my on the Facebook page. So my Celluloid Heart podcast at Facebook, on the Facebook. Anyway, on the Facebook. I'm 47. I sound like it, right? Anyway, it's really, really neat. And the documentary, it's not too long, but it was really good. And then I checked on the DVD last night when I was at Target picking up my Us DVD, a Blu-ray, that I thought maybe it would be included onto the movie, but it's not. So it's really cool. So if anybody has the Criterion Channel, or you go out there and you get I'm sure the documentary is better than the movie in a way. I mean, of course, the movie's Robert Zemeckis. I might rent it tonight from Redbox, but it's really neat and really interesting, where I'm sure they didn't put in the movie. Like the guy is likes to wear women's shoes and almost cross-dress, but he loves women. So it's very, very interesting, and he's in fear of that. And then they go to show his pictures that he takes at a museum in New York. And he's like, oh, I wanted to wear shoes. And everybody and all the people at the gallery are like, yeah, go for it. So he goes and puts on the girl's shoes and wears them, and very cool. Very neat. So that was good. Then I saw Don't Look Now. Everybody says, oh, my God, you got to see Don't Look Now. You know, it's so like whatever. You know, Donald Sutherland, Julie Christie. The sex scene, they say, is so great. Like the best sex scene ever. Like rumors that Warren Beatty, who was dating Julie Christie at the time, called Nicholas Roeg and was like, hey, could you take that sex scene out, because it looks like they're having sex. Like I don't want that there. And they were like, no. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So this movie is like psychological thriller. It's like this couple who lost their daughter in an accidental drowning. And there's imagery that pops up that you're like, what does that mean? Like you kind of wonder and trying to figure it out. Then they go over to England, and they meet. The wife meets these two ladies who are psychics, or the one's a psychic, and she's a blind psychic, and she's saying like, I can sense your daughter. I talk to your daughter, and she tries to tell Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland's like, no. The psychics are like, I think he might be a psychic too. He just doesn't embrace his gift. And you're like, okay. And he's just like, whatever. I'm not going to have any part of it, which is interesting. And then it goes through, and it's a bunch of stuff like layered through there. Like, oh, it's so good. So everybody check out Don't Look Now, 1973. It's very good. And that sex scene, I'll tell you, the best sex scene ever. I used to think the hottest or most uncomfortable, almost realistic sex scene was from the History of Violence, when he's like, I think he goes down on her in the close to the beginning, and I was like, holy shit. And that was David Cronenberg. So you're like, okay, expect that. But this was, oh man, it was, and not in a like, oh man, like not in a porno way, in a really like, it seems real, like the way it's not like a polished, on top, and, it's like all over, like they're rolling around, they're biting under their armpits. Like, I know it sounds weird, but it's really, really cool. So check it out. Then I saw Dance Girl Dance from 1943. So there's 3 movies on Criterion Channel that are directed by Dorothy Arzner. And that's the third one from 1943. And then she left the business in 45. And this one they got better as they go. I mean, Christopher Strong was good. Then Craig's Wife was good. And it was better. And then Dance Girl Dance was really good. And if any of you listen to those Movie Guys podcast, on there they were talking about The Quiet Man with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. And Maureen O'Hara's in this movie. And it is very cool. And she's like this dance girl who doesn't feel, they're just dance hall girls who just dance. And she doesn't feel like she's very good. And because she sees some real people that are practicing for a movie doing it. And she's like, or for a big stage show. And she's like, oh my God, like I thought I was good, but we're just pretending. Then and it's got Lucille Ball in it. And Lucille Ball, gorgeous back 1943, always gorgeous. But in 43, she used to be a dancer. And so she's the main headliner, Southern Girl. Anyway, really cool. If you can find Dance Girl Dance, I highly recommend it. I really liked it. What better way to celebrate our independence, July 4th, Americana, than with Bill Murray? So I'm going to play you the Bill Murray episode. But first, Lisa Loeb, she does stay, for Reality Bites. But she did a kids CD. She did a couple of those. And so I was looking up the Meatballs theme song or whatever that plays at the end, and I found her doing a version of it. And it sounds about like the one in the movie. So I'm going to play a little bit of that for you now. So I went to Comic-Con and I was wearing my Bill Murray shirt. And because you were like, what are you going to be wearing there in case anybody's listening? And I had so many fans come to me that no fans. So I wore, and it's a silhouette like of Bill Murray's face from the side. And then in that silhouette is pictures from all his movies. Yeah. And I've kind of looked at them. I should have done this before, but I didn't. But I looked at him and said, okay, I know that's What About Bob. This is whatever. Went through the whole thing. There was one that I wasn't sure of. He's wearing like a black suit, and he's got a bowling. He's bowling, right? But I forget that he's in this movie. So I go to Comic-Con. I'm walking around. I see this guy, and I'm thinking all these guys are going to be like wanting to sell their shit, and they're not going to want to have a regular conversation. But a lot of them are bored because they're just sitting there, and either people buy stuff or they don't. But it's like, hey, I'm bored. So I'm sitting there. I go, hey, man, I like your stuff. This is really good. He goes, oh, thanks. And then he goes, hey, cool shirt. And I said, oh, thanks. And he goes, what's that movie from right there in the middle? And I'm looking at it upside down, and I'm like, I don't know. I said, I know this and this, and we went through the whole thing. And he goes, but what's that? He goes, I remember that movie. He goes, he was bowling. He goes, hang on. And so I go, but let's try to figure it out without looking it up. But I think he ended up looking at it. And he's like, Kingpin. And I go, oh, my God, I forgot he was in Kingpin. Yes. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah. So had that little conversation. So that was cool. And then went and saw, Jason Bromley do the podcast and live, which I don't know. I don't think I talked about on here because I've just been doing it with other people. But so I get in there. I've told you this, but I haven't said it on the air, so I'm telling everybody now. I go there, and he's doing, and I'm thinking, first of all, like, oh, my God, like, this could either go both ways. It could go one way where it could be really good, or it could be really horrible. There could be 5 people in there, and it's all his friends or all the people from the show, and then me and Colleen and whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, my God. So I walk in, and there's already like 20 people in there when I walk in, and it's getting ready to start. And Colleen had even asked me in the beginning, she goes, let me be honest, is this going to be a shit show? And I'm like, she goes, because I have a feeling. She goes, nothing against your friend. I said, no, no. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm kind of, I said, I'm excited for him, but I said
Mm-hmm.
also, I'm wondering, like, maybe I'll do that next year or something, right? So we get in there. He's standing at the podium. He sees me. We've only seen each other through Google Hangouts. So he sees me, waves. I wave to him. Sit down. And then more people start coming in. And this is for the Princess Bride thing. And before, he had been talking about, because what he has a problem on his show is people doing their homework. So he'll be like, "Did you watch The Princess Bride?" And they'll be like, "No, I didn't. I didn't get to it." Are you fucking serious? Like when he did the one with this girl named dang it, why am I drawing a blank on her name? Fuck, Alicia. So he had Alicia on. She's one of his friends, and he's like, "Let's do." I think I told you about this. Let's do Saturday morning cartoons. And that's what got me like into listening to his show. I'm like, dude, Saturday morning cartoons, I'm fucking there. That's awesome. And he had all the pictures from the 80s. I was like, cool. I tune in. He's like, so Alicia, when I used to wake up, I used to watch Smurfs, Thunder the Barbarian. She's like, what's that? He goes, do you even know what I'm talking about? And he'd go through Teen Wolf, all this. She had no idea. And then he goes, what cartoons do you remember? She goes, well, I grew up like, around Titanic times. So she's like, I know like Rugrats, like they're really cool, and like she's naming all these 90s things, and and I'm just like, "Oh fuck, like I thought you were going to really dive deep." Like I got excited.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, I was thinking, "Oh my god, he's going to have all this research done and nobody." But he actually set them all down. They all made sure, they all knew how important it was to him. And so they each had their thing where it worked perfect to hand off to, he had his friend Brian Gunn on, he had Alicia Irino on, he had this burlesque dancer that he knows, she was on there,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was him. And so he's standing at that podium and he's like, okay, everybody, thank you. He said, I'm really nervous standing up here, so I'm gonna go sit down now. Like I'm gonna like, and so then he sat down with everybody, and it worked where they handed off to each other really easy. Like hey, did you know Carrie Eloise? Blah blah blah. Yeah. Also, and I was like, oh my god, awesome. And so it worked out really well. And then
So did it seem like they did like a rehearsal or something?
it seemed that way, but I think that maybe they just had maybe they did. Maybe it was like, here's some facts that I found, and they all went through their notes. And he said, okay, to the trajectory of the show, they went through the movie. So it's like, okay, when we get to this part where they're fighting with swords, we'll jump to that at the end, because that's close
Gotcha.
to the end, and da da da. So and what's his name never showed up, Chris Sarandon.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, which like I told him, I said, you're making $80 a pop at everybody coming on for so do you take an hour out of your time to go see that? And also, what scared me was if I did do that next year, did a podcast there. You know me, I run long, I talk a lot, I go on tangents. This was like an hour. Like you're like about 50 minutes is what you have, and then you
Okay.
have to move because the other people are coming in to do their thing.
Yeah.
So so I was only able to go to the Friday show, and then Saturday at night was Fright Night. And he said less people showed up for Fright Night, but it was still a lot of people. And but Princess Bride, everybody just showed up, and it's like me and Colleen. We would look at stuff. She didn't really have an idea because she went like last minute. So she was like, I don't know what's going on out here. I've just come to go shopping and stuff. I said,
Yeah.
okay. And then I said, well, I have it on my app. I was going to go to this thing where it's like supernatural, like almost like this last podcast on the left that I was talking about. Like they'll do like that. Like let's go into this old wives' tale of Bloody Mary, where you stand in the mirror and you say Bloody Mary 3 times or whatever, and she appears behind you. So they went through a bunch of those. But she was like, "Oh, I never heard of these guys. I don't know about this." And so we sat down and watched it, and it was an hour, and it was funny and very entertaining. And they reach out to the audience, and then there was another one that was what was
So
the
do you
other one?
follow them now?
Another one? No, because they don't have a podcast. Theirs is just like a website. But thank you for bringing all my shit out in public. No, I didn't look them up. I should have because they're really good. But I still have my Comic-Con books, so I'll look them up. But they're cool stuff. And then we went, and then they had a thing I never got to go to, but they had like Star Trek 2. It was all about Star Trek 2. Nice. It was all about like the Star Trek movies because it was the anniversary of the first one, and then they had, and then Nichelle Nichols and them were there. But what was funny that, because I was going to get into this about us getting old, because you and I had an interesting conversation the other day, but you know, you go to Comic-Con and you hear people go, "Oh my God, that Walter Koenig, he's looking rough." And it's like, well, yeah, like, because all they have on when you look at the app, like to see who's going to be there, it's, you know, Jeff Goldblum was now. That was his picture now with his gray and black hair. But Walter Koenig was from like Undiscovered Country. And Nichelle Nichols was Undiscovered Country. It was like that era.
Stock photos.
Yeah, and so you're going, oh, okay, and now you're going to go see him, and Nichelle Nichols is full white hair. And I remember when I first saw Deadpool, I thought that was Nichelle Nichols, but it's, it was Leslie Uggams. I was like, cool, and I go, oh no, how racist am I? That's another podcast. How racist am I? Hello and welcome. So then so that was interesting where it's like, yeah, these people get older. These actors get older. But I fall into the same thing. I've told you, I love Claudia Cardinal. Mm-hmm. She was in Once Upon a Time in the West, and she was in The Professionals. And I'm like, man, she's hot. And you look at her now, and you're like, oh, she got older. Like, what's going on? It's the same thing. I was watching a David Letterman thing on Netflix. And he talked to Ellen. It was a really cool episode. But he talked to Ellen, and she was like taking him through the studio tour. And she sees this like 90s Mercedes parked like by the studio things. And she's like, oh, Clint's here. She goes, you want to go say hi to Clint? And David Letterman's like, okay. So they go in, and Clint Eastwood gets up. And Clint Eastwood's, my grandpa. He's 90 years old or 80 something. And he gets up and he says hi to David, and he touches his beard like, what's going on? What's with this? He goes, what's with your face? And he goes, I can say the same thing about you. So, and I think that was like, I started thinking like, I wonder if Clint was like, what the fuck? Like, how dare you? But it was just like a knee-jerk reaction of like a joke. But, and then David Letterman told him a joke, and then they left, and it was just, Ellen, they're like, how cool is that you can just walk in on his regular office that he always has and just talk to Clint Eastwood. And the really cool story, everybody should listen to it, but in the 60s, Ellen and her family went on a road trip, and they went to, I think they film on Warner Brothers. They went to the Warner Brothers lot to see Gilligan's Island being filmed. Mm-hmm. And they went there, and they saw that, and now she goes through there, and it's the Ellen stage. It's a plaque on the wall outside that says, like, all the President's Men was filmed here, 10 Commandments, all this. And at the very end, it says the Ellen DeGeneres Show. And it's like, nice. Awesome. So, David Letterman was like, that's way cool. So it's a really, really good episode. And she tells a story about how her stepdad molested her when she was young, and that's like powerful. Not to bring it down. It's like, yeah, it's funny. Oh, what? Yeah.
What?
But yeah, she was like, I don't know. You could cut this out if you want. And then she went ahead and said it. And David Letterman's like, I'll tell you what, we're not cutting that out. And that's really good.
Nice. Well, talking about the old thing.
Yeah.
Actors getting old. I was kind of like, there's those moments where you're like, wow. And you see people that you're like, were really watching when you were younger. You're kind of like, and it happens. But for some reason,
Skippy from Family Ties.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, Drew Barrymore.
Yeah,
I didn't like. All of a sudden, it went from like one extreme to another. Like all of a sudden, I was like, "Was it me?" And I was just, my brain was just like thinking she was going to look like she did in the Charlie's Angels Forever or something.
Right,
Because
yeah.
I saw her recently and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. I looked it up and she's the same age as me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. All right, then. I was like, I guess I can't be talking.
Yeah.
I feel rude.
I'm on I see her on Instagram and she'll do these videos and you're just like, you're a mom now. Like that's just, you're not, you're now a mom,
Well, you remember all the trouble she used to get into.
well, right. Well, and her,
alcohol and
the
all that
history of the Barrymores and all that stuff. And they all have alcoholism in the family. And and then the other thing was what got you and I talking about it was we said, you were saying that you listen to new music and you walk around the store and you're, when you're working. And I said, I'm listening to old music that I like, and I'm singing out loud to, Slaughter's Fly to the Angels. Because Joe used to go, you just go, I'm fly. Like I just scream it, like fly to the angel. And he's like, it's hilarious. Like you just scream out the window or just yell at me. And so I'm doing that and I'm having a good old time. And then you realize like I'm the old guy that's like pulling up to a light thinking that my music is so cool. And everybody's going, oh my God, what's this guy, dancing to or listening to? Like, oh. And same thing with things. I equate it to that I've never had kids. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I can't look at something that is my time machine or my Dorian Gray photo, whatever, where I see the kids getting older and I'm going, oh, I feel old now because, I see it with my friends' kids when I'm like, oh my God, Talia's like 21 years old. She's like almost a model. And I'm like, I remember when she was born and now she's this age. But I still just go, wow, she's growing up. But then to me, like I think I told you and I told other people, I watched Cujo like months ago for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it seems like just the other day I saw the trailer on TV and I told my mom, I want to see that movie. And then I'm looking at it. I go, honey, do you know this movie is from like 1982 or something like that? And she's like, yeah, it's old. You're old. And and it's the same thing with all this stuff where I feel like I'm watching Friday the 13th and I binged last night like five of them and I still got 2 more to watch and then I got to find Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X. But the other ones are on Prime and I'm watching it and there's a young Corey Feldman in number 4. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, he's in 4, 5, and 6, but he's only in 4 in the beginning of 5, and then it cuts to him when he's older.
Don't forget to mention the Burbs.
So, yes. Oh, yeah, of course. So my wife loves Corey Feldman. He's in the Burbs, but we'll get to that in a second. So he's in there, but he's younger than he was in Stand By Me and in anything else I've seen. He's like way young. And I'm like, oh, my God, like this is like one of his first movies or something. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me go, it didn't seem like that was that long ago. Like, like Friday the 13th was just a little bit ago. It's like, no, that was 1980. Same thing, Kevin Bacon. You go, oh, look at Kevin Bacon, his second film. And then now he's, whatever. But yeah, it's the thing where it's the thing of getting older of, I'm trying to think where I was going to go with this, but it was the thing that I'll tell my wife, like, oh, look at that. That's so cool. And she'll be like, you're old. Like, you like that because it's old. Like, so we'll get to Stripes later. We're going to start with Meatballs. But I said, let's watch Stripes. I go, it's from 1981. You said you don't like anything before 81. She goes, no, I like about 85 and 86. Like, then you give me, like, I don't. And I go, well, come on, watch it. She goes, all right. So she watched it. And she liked it. Spoiler alert. But again, I hate multitaskers only because when I'm watching a movie, I want you to focus on the movie, but I realize that you don't get what I get out of Stripes, like all these lines that are kind of said quickly or whatever that, the Hare Krishna joke, I know she won't get.
Yeah.
because it's like a song that was in the 70s, like whatever, and like all that stuff. And but she, and then she watched Meatballs also with me, and she was just like, okay, like it was good, like she liked it, but also she was multitasking and stuff, and it's like, okay, and she'd more like to play her whatever that Ryan Reynolds game is. She plays that one. It's like Candy Crush, but it's different. Toon Blast. So she plays that and then has TV going. But we play all the stuff that you don't really have to pay attention to. Monk, Murder, She Wrote, Psych, all that. So pretty interesting. But anyway, I guess we'll get to Meatballs now that we've been talking for 20 minutes almost.
Yeah.
So we're here to do Early Murray, Meatballs from 1979 and Stripes from 1981. And Meatballs, the plot of that is wacky hijinks of counselors and campers at a less-than-average summer camp. Stars, Bill Murray. Now, I wrote these down. I know a lot of people won't know these actors, but I wrote kind of the main ones down. I don't remember names as much, and why I name off the names is so people can go, oh, yeah, I like Spaz or whatever.
Yeah.
Bill Murray is Tripper. Chris Makepeace as Rudy. Harvey. See, I need my glasses, Chip.
Dang.
Harvey. Wow, that made it worse. Harvey Adkins as Morty. Kate Lynch as Roxanne. Jesus. Russ Banham as Crockett. Christine DeBelle as A.L., which I couldn't think of which one she was, but Sarah Targov as Candace, Jack Blum, as Spaz, and he was actually the casting director. Keith Knight as Fink, Matt Craven, as Hardware, and Harvey. I wrote Harvey Adkins twice. Harvey Adkins is Morty. Okay, Marty, it's Morty. Was Mickey, yeah. Matt Craven is in other things. You'll know him from all these cop drama shows. Mm-hmm. It is written by Len Bloom, Daniel Goldberg, Janice Allen, and Harold Ramis, and directed by Ivan Reitman. So I have some notes here watching this movie. First of all, have you ever been to summer camp? I don't think you have.
No.
I really wish I could have been.
Me too.
And
especially after watching this, when we were younger, watching it, I think it just made me wish I would have went, thinking that that's the way camp would have been.
Yeah.
But you know that it's not when you get older. You're like, no, that's not how it would have been.
Well, and even the actors in here have said that even that was like going to summer camp. They all hooked up. The guy's we're all married now. We're in our 60s. We're all married now. We have kids. Some of us have grandkids. I'm not going to tell any stories, but there was some fooling around going on. It's okay. But now they have a thing called Camp No Counselors that who's that guy? Michael Rosenbaum and Macaulay Culkin and them went to, and where it's an adult summer camp that you can go to and you can play games and it's all kinds of fun.
So it's like Indian summer type of a thing?
Yeah. Exactly, which I still haven't seen. I should really get on that movie. I remember I wanted to see it a long time ago. Chris Makepeace was in Mazes and Monsters, the Tom Hanks TV movie, when I was looking up my trivia there. I like on there when Bill Murray says, oh, you're going to Vegas? If you're going to Vegas, I'll go. I love that town. I was like, oh, my God. And same scene where he's telling him what he'll do to the soccer heads, where he's like, I was trained by the Koreans, and just get in there and you turn it down. And I was like, oh, my God. And when he's wrestling that woman, and then he throws her on top of him, and he's like, help, help.
Well, and some of those moments like that when he was pulling her around,
yeah,
the look on her face, I was like, that a lot of this was ad-lib type of a situation, and he was getting really physical, pulling really hard on her, and she would slam into him and slam into stuff.
Yeah.
And I know she was like, what the hell are we doing? The look on her face, I was like, oh, damn. Well, and it looked like she was ready to just punch him in the face.
Well, and if you think about that, that's probably the problem you have being a comedian like that, where that you could physically pull around Gilda Radner on SNL, and she'll do whatever. She's game for whatever if it makes it funny, treat me like a rag doll.
Yeah.
maybe Jane Curtin and Lorraine Newman, like all them. But now you get with somebody who maybe isn't a comedic person like that, and you're gonna go, hey, I'm gonna add, I'm just gonna do this, and then you're like, oh my god, you know.
Well, and that was the problem though, is because of all those scenes and him pulling her around, the look on her face, it
Yeah.
made it really hard for the segue for them to all of a sudden be getting romantic. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was like the worst possible, you
Yeah.
know,
Did
evolution of their relationship. I was like, how did Ivan Reitman not recognize this?
did your wife watch Meatballs with you?
No. She watched Stripes. She didn't watch Meatballs really. Yeah, she
Okay.
she wasn't all about it, and I mean that was fine. But I was kind of expecting it. I was able to get her to at least watch one,
Yeah.
so I was like, that's cool.
Yeah. It's like you pick your battles.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, my wife watched it. I don't think she's ever been to summer camp. And I really don't know anybody who has, but us here in Arizona, and you used to be in Arizona, I think people do go to California, go to summer camp, but I never knew anybody who was like, oh yeah, I went to summer camp. It's like,
Nope.
but yeah,
because everybody went to like Lake Pleasant and like did their own
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
and
it's
went
like-
camping in Arizona.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they went
yeah.
up
And
north,
well-
and that was it.
and in a way, maybe it's more of an East Coast, might be a West Coast, like families who are busy who just go, I got to get rid of the kid because I got to work or whatever, and then they send the kid there. So then it makes
Well,
sense. But yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense, especially if they're like New Yorkers that
Yeah.
are like city locked type of a thing.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
like, I'll just send a kid
Yeah.
out to the wilderness and see what happens.
and I will tell you this. So when we were going to do the show, and I said, let's do Stripes. Let's do Caddyshack and Stripes. And you said, I fucking hate Caddyshack. And I was like, and I drove, I think I flew to Colorado. I knocked on the door and I punched you in the throat. No. But you said, let's do Meatballs and Stripes. And I said, okay. Meatballs is not one of my favorite Bill Murray movies. I like it. But if I were to list them, it would be lower on the thing. I find it funny, but not all the way through funny, like a Ghostbusters or a Stripes or a Caddyshack.
Well, and my
but
whole
then
reasoning
also-
was because I hadn't seen it in a while, so I was like, we should watch that.
Well, yeah, that's what I love about this show. But then also where Caddyshack, where he's like third tier, he's like a small part. It's not, the bigger part. So, but something that was interesting on some of my facts, the working title for the film was Summer Camp, and then we'll get to your favorite in a minute, but I wanted to hit this first. So Banham, the guy that plays Crockett, said Dan Aykroyd was supposed to play the part. That's what I heard, and that's what we all believed. Most of us in the cast, we would talk about it. Can you believe we're in this movie with Dan Aykroyd? Everybody knew who Dan Aykroyd was, and then we show up for the movie, and there's Bill Murray, and we're like deflated. Oh, It's a new guy from SNL. Okay. But I even always wanted Bill Murray. But I guess a rumor came around that it was going to be Dan Aykroyd. But it was like, and then that guy that plays Spaz, he said, Bill turned up in his Hawaiian shirt and red shorts wearing an alarm clock on his wrist, which eventually found its way into the film. And those were like Bill Murray's clothes. Like they made an agreement, kind of like Bill Murray is now, where he'll just make an agreement, like talk to you on the phone and be like, okay, and then just show up. And so they didn't know until the day before filming. Ivan Reitman's like, I'm freaking out. And all of a sudden, here he comes. Like, he had no backup plan.
Damn.
And then all of a sudden, Bill Murray walks in. And he's like, okay, good. So, but, yeah. Okay, so were you going to get to your favorite parts? I see you looking at your notes.
I just I wrote down some stuff because it wasn't like, I guess, favorite parts, because it's all, for me, it was just, I liked Bill Murray's ad lib throughout the whole thing, because you could tell a lot of it was ad lib.
Yeah.
And then I had read, which was freaky considering that we knew we were going to be doing this show.
Yeah.
But I think the New Yorker or something like that just did like 24 hours ago a story about Meatballs.
Oh, wow.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I was like, "What the hell?" Because the person was really trying to go way deep
Uh-huh.
about Meatballs, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "You don't go deep into something that's basically ad lib,
Yeah.
best of Murray ad lib type of a situation."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "This is like some of the stuff that he wrote." I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Yeah.
But what I wrote down, which this is a little thing,
Okay.
in the beginning of Meatballs, the little kid that was saying that the buses were death traps and that he would sue.
Yeah.
He sounded like one of the younger Murray brothers, but there was no credit at the end. And I looked through all of IMDb, no credit. And I was like, son of a, like, because it looked like it was one of the younger brothers. I think one that's might be, I think 13 to 15 years younger than,
like younger than Brian, well, I think Brian is older than him. But yeah, younger than the one from Moving Violations and younger than the one that was in that
well, no, I think
that Bobcat Goldthwait movie, like younger than that guy.
Yeah, it was somewhere around because I was like, but of course I couldn't find anything, so it kind of pissed me off. And then, of course, right away, I was seeing Spaz.
Yeah,
I just basically thought of him as being basically the template for Revenge of the Nerds, like the main guy from Revenge of the Nerds. I was like, that's him. Like,
they were saying back then on another thing I read was like, this was like the first movie that kind of did like nerds and like outcasts, like, you know, and anyway, go ahead. I got some other thing. The thing was, it's supposed to be Animal House for kids, is what Ivan Reitman said.
Okay.
So and then like a lot of it was just Bill Murray doing the ad lib stuff, and later on when we get into Stripes, that's why Stripes works, because Harold Ramis and Bill Murray knew each other for years, working Second City or not Second City, but doing all that, and maybe he is from Canada. Anyway, doing all that, and so they knew how to ad lib. So Ivan Reitman's like, I know how to get these guys, and they can work off each other, and then they'd get together in a room, they'd talk about a scene, and they'd go, let's do, but we'll get to that when we get to Stripes. But yeah.
And the other thing that I wrote down here was that Makepeace was the worst straight man to Murray ever.
Is that because he smiles a lot, or
well, there was nothing. Like he basically just kind of
just lets him do his thing. Yeah,
and it was like Murray was having to carry the scenes, and then every once in a while, maybe Makepeace would giggle or something, and go no, or say something, but that was it. And I'm like, really? Like I don't remember watching it so long ago. Don't remember. Realizing how one-sided those scenes were.
Yeah.
That it was, that they were expecting this kid to help carry this movie by being opposite Murray, and Murray's basically going, well, he doesn't know what's coming, and obviously he's just sitting there looking at him going, whoa.
Yeah. But there was a thing that one of the girls said, I didn't save it for the facts, but something with being in that movie and just knowing. She said they were going down to film the fire scene when they're sitting around the campfire, when they go to that little thing. She said Ivan Reitman had picked this little secluded area. So her and maybe Spaz or whatever, a couple of them are walking down the thing and walking through this trail through this forest. And all of a sudden, Bill Murray starts singing a song that he just made up right then about being in love with a stunt woman, and starts throwing himself into bushes and like grabbing him and flipping himself over and like doing all this stuff like he's like a stunt woman's beating him up and he's talking about how he loves her. And she goes, the thing was, he was just doing that for us. Like that was just for nobody. There was no cameras rolling. There was nothing. He was just being goofy. It just struck him and he's like, I'm going to do this. And I was like, oh my God, it's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But it's also those things, I think, with SNL people where you go, oh, that'd be good for a scene in SNL, for a little skit. Or it's like, I always wonder, like some of these comedians, like, on the Ellen thing, she talked about this on another thing, on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, but Ellen DeGeneres said that she did that phone call to God. Remember that? It was on Johnny Carson. She did that because her girlfriend had died in a car wreck. And she was really depressed for a long time after that. and couldn't get out of this funk. And so she went down to write all of her thing, and it was a letter to God, pretty much what she wrote. And then she looked at it and was like, oh, this could be funny. And then she had, like, you know, that he's got the choir, and she's like, oh, it's a good recording. Oh, it's live. Oh, okay. So it was pretty cool. But but people coming up with those little things are just crazy. But something else that's interesting, we were talking about Makepeace, is on the audio commentary, it says several of the shots in the movie were added after initial filming edited. These included the scenes of Rudy and Tripper at the bus station and of them playing blackjack for peanuts. During the time off, Chris Makepeace had entered puberty and had the beginning of a mustache. Bill Murray decided that it had to go, so he took Makepeace over to a sink, lathered him up with soap, and shaved off his mustache. So Chris received his first shave from Bill Murray.
Oh, wow.
Like,
That's
how
awesome.
cool is that? And then that thing about Animal House for Kids is Ivan Reitman said, I called my friends up and said, I have to direct again. He had done Cannibal Girls before that. And make something funny and more like Animal House. Let's write a script about summer camp. That was in March of 79, and we started shooting in August at a real summer camp. And this part is really cool. So It Just Doesn't Matter was Bill's attempt at philosophy. We didn't have it in the script. We needed a rally scene to bring the losing group back up. One of the great things about Bill is that he has a way of taking the stage and electrifying people, even in real life. I remember working with him at dinner the night before, and we talked about the scene philosophically. At some point, he said, it just doesn't matter. And I said, that's it. That's the line. Keep repeating that and fill it in with funny stuff. He came in the next morning and had a few sheets of paper with dozens of lines, and he would try them out. For that scene, I shot in a way that the cameras are capturing the real reactions of the kids. I just let him go. Those are natural reactions. The speech worked. Bill actually could do what his character was doing. We had 2 or 3 takes because Bill blew his voice out right away.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And then the last fact is Jason's first movie. My son, director Jason Reitman, was on the set. He was 6 months old. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. But yeah, all those scenes are good. Like I said, like if there were more of that, but I know that they were just kind of trying to, it made money. It made all kinds of money, and it's a good, heartwarming story in general. There were a lot of the actors on there were saying that they said, even though I was in it, the one guy goes, I cried a little because of how sentimental it is for these kids are going to camp for the first time. They've never been away from their parents. They have to, and then also that it's just the whole underdog thing, like all that stuff. And like I said, the scene at the bus station is great. Like, I love that. Them playing blackjack, there's a quote where he's like, the kid goes, I like history. I like to imagine, and Bill Murray's just like, come on, play cards. Like, he's trying to open up to him, and he's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, I liked it. And I had seen it a little bit recently before, and then I watched it again this time. And, yeah, it's good, and I like those underdog stories, and I like how when we get to Stripes here in a little bit, is how he has those talks. And it's good that I'm going to add it at the end of the show, his whole speech to them about, we're the American fighting soldier, I'm going to put all that. But that whole, and that's why it's good. We're going to be on July 3rd when this comes out. July 4th is America.
Yeah.
So that's all, just America. It's America Day.
America.
So
It's America Day.
yeah, exactly. Fuck yeah. So yeah. Do you have anything else about Meatballs?
No, the only thing that I have connecting to Stripes is that the exact same writers did Stripes except for Janice Allen.
Yeah,
I was the extra one that was on Meatballs, but the other 3 did Stripes.
Yeah, that's what when I was getting to Stripes in 1981, 2 friends who are goodness, let me try that again. 2 friends who are dissatisfied with their jobs decide to join the army for a bit of fun. Stars Bill Murray as John, Harold Ramis as Russell, Warren Oates as Sergeant Holka, P.J. Souls as Stella, Sean Young as Lois, John Candy as Ox, John Larroquette as Captain Stillman, John Dial as Cruiser. He's from Miami Vice, in case people are going, hey, look familiar. Conrad Dunn as Psycho, Judge Reinhold as Elmo. Oh, wow, it made it. Anyway, Anthony Pagan as Hector, Joe Flaherty as Border Guard, and Dave Thomas as EMC. And like you said, it was directed by Len Blum, Daniel Goldberg, and Harold Ramis, and directed by Ivan Reitman. And first of all, to start this out, you and I talked about on our Zorro episode, Zorro, there was Lone Ranger. I'll give you your credit. The Lone Ranger and Zorro episode. But I have to say, I said that that soundtrack, like Zorro, I know that. Dun, 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 like, I just know that. Like, it's ingrained in my head. Like, I love that song. And I love that it's, but what's funny is now that I downloaded the music onto my, Apple Music, it'll go through and then it'll go to play that. But it'll play the other songs from Don Juan. And I'm like, no, I just want, But this Stripes, what I wrote here is, I've said it before, but the main theme is one of, if not my all-time favorite of all movie themes for Stripes, is dun 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 dun, and it's like, oh fuck yes, and I love it so, like, and it's just because it's ingrained in my head, and it's this anthem, this cool, like, just way cool thing, like, and I just watched it this morning. So now let's get to our wives' reaction. So I said, honey, I'm watching it's funny. So I bought Criterion Channel. I've told everybody about. I even reached out to Criterion. I said, hey, I really like your channel. I'm not looking for money. I do a podcast. I'd like to promote your show. Do you have any ideas for me to promote the Criterion Channel? Mm-hmm. And I got no response. So, but so every time she's gone, that's when I can watch all my weird shit or my foreign films, or, if I'm watching Akira Kurosawa, she's going to go, I don't speak Japanese. It's black and white. I don't like it. So last night I go, okay, I got free time. She got called into work at 10 o'clock. So I'm like, I'm going to sit down and watch Criterion. So I bring up Amazon first. I don't know why. And I go, I'm going to try this Naked Vengeance movie that I thought was like from 85. I thought it would be a cool, like, revenge picture, but it's got no stars in it that and I'm thinking, did this ever come out in the theater, or was it direct to video, or what? And I start to watch it. It takes forever to get going, so I'm like, okay, turn that off. And then I go, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch the first Friday the 13th, just the first one. So I put it on, I watch it. First one ends.
First mistake.
That's right. Spoiler alert. If you've seen Scream, though, you know the answer to this. Jason didn't kill anybody in the first one. It was Jason's mother. And because, her poor son died again, summer camp. That's why I was like, oh, is this a summer camp movie we're watching? I'm like, oh, wait, it's Meatballs. So she kills. So then at the end, you're like, oh, well, now I got to know where this goes. I want to watch part 2. So then you watch part 2, and then I'm like, okay, just part 2, and then I'll get to other stuff. And then part 2 ends, and I go, okay, well, now I got to find out what happens in part 3. And then I go, screw it. I'm already in. I got 8 to go. I got 8 of them to watch. I said, I'll go ahead and watch it. So then I watch 4, and then I watch 5. And then I'm like, okay, now I got 6, 7, and 8 left, so maybe I'll watch those tonight. But, yeah.
Damn.
But they look really good on Amazon Prime. But anyway, I don't know what the point of that was. Criterion, I reached out to them. Favorite, I don't know. Anyway, we watched Strike. Oh, my wife. Yeah. Sorry, thanks. So, you're just nodding. Yeah, okay.
This is a look to the future of a live podcast at a Comic-Con.
Exactly, yeah. Well, that's why I said, I think I told Colleen, or I told other people, I said Colleen would be the best one to be there. Yeah, I told you that, too. Because she keeps me on point. As you hear on one of our episodes where we're talking, and she's like, and I'll go off on this thing about my dad and Unforgiven, And she's like, okay, we're done. And I'm like, she goes, wrap it up. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, thank you, bye. I was like,
See, I'd love to be that person,
yeah,
but to do it, I would want a Nerf gun.
yeah. So you could
I would
hit
just
me, shoot
you
me in
with
the
a
face.
bullet from
Wow,
Nerf gun.
wow.
just you'll be in the middle of a boom. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Maybe
Yeah.
I should get on point.
maybe you could be in the audience and just keep shooting me, and they'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, but at that point, if I were going to be like way out there, I would have like one of those Gatling gun ones that just shooting like 25 at you.
Exactly. I'd be like, all right, I stopped. But anyway, so my wife, I said, honey, you want to watch Stripes? Or should I watch it while you're gone? And she's like, no, yeah, I'll watch it. I said, are you going to fall asleep? She goes, we'll see. I'll try to stay up. So she gets home. I put it on. We're watching it, and she's multitasking, and I just can't. It's okay. I understand that's her thing. Okay, go ahead. But my thing is like all movie lovers are probably this way, where you want something you love, you want the people to focus on it and be like, okay, I'm watching it. Yeah. But with that, it was she was just like playing her Toon Blast and doing all this, and I'm like, honey, watch this. And then she's like, she'd look up, oh, okay. And then she did say at one point, this is kind of a thing of Hollywood in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. She's like, Hollywood in the 70s and 80s, she goes, you didn't have to look good looking, and you could be in a movie. She's like, look at Bill Murray. He's not that, attractive. She's like, Harold Ramis. She's like, and what were we? We were watching something the other day. She was like, and that person too, like all these. Oh yeah, she said Tom Hanks, like, But I was like, okay. But anyway, it's and speaking of, we were talking about getting old earlier. So on Friday the 13th, Part 5, they have this kid in there, one of the kids from like the Cosby Show or something. And he was my age, but I'm sitting there going, hey, I remember that guy. And then I look and I'm like, oh, he was born in 71 too. Like, it's this black kid that I was like, hey, I know that guy. But anyway, made you feel old, where you're like, where's that guy been? But anyway, so we watched it, and then it came while she's kind of doing stuff, and I'm laughing at the things, but not out loud, because I know what's coming, but still it's fun. Then it gets to the graduation scene. And I go, honey, watch. This is my favorite part of all time. Like, this is great. And she's like,
I did the same thing to my wife. I was like, you gotta this is the best part. And she's like, okay.
And she's like, okay.
She's messing with her phone the whole time too.
Yeah. And then she's watching it, and they're marching out there, and she's like, what are they saying? I don't understand what they're saying. I go, it's just a song that they're singing to get out there. Just wait for it, because then they're marching in place in that line. And then boom, chugga, and then they get out so good. Then they all spread out, and I'm like, see, isn't that cool? And I go, now watch this, and then they do the whole thing, lazy dog. But right about then, she gets up to go to the restroom, and I'm like, okay, honey, like you gotta watch. She goes, I saw it, I see it. I'm like, okay, and so maybe she didn't go until the very end of that, but then she was itching and she had to go take a bath. She's like, I don't know what it is, but I got to go take a bath. Yeah. And so I'm like, but now they've graduated. And I said, did you hear that they graduated? They're in charge of the AM50. And she's like, yeah, I heard that. She goes, I'll watch the rest later. And I'm like, but, and then, so then she comes out and they've been captured.
Yeah.
And I said, and she goes, who's that guy? And I go, that's the sergeant. He got tired because you heard where the captain was like, turn right here. And the guy's like, Holka's like, that's Checo's like, you can't. And he's like, shut up, I'm doing it. And I go, so he thinks the captain's an idiot, so he's jumping out. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she watched the rest of it, and then I was like, you want me to rewind it now and we'll watch it? And she's like, no, I'll watch it later. And I'm like, okay. But I'm also like, yeah, I don't know. Nah. But here's what's interesting. But she did buy What About Bob the other day. That came in the mail. Surprise. I was like, oh, cool.
Okay, question now.
And I've never seen that all the way through.
Version?
No, I watched the regular theatrical version.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Because I was going to watch it. I've seen the extended cut before, but for her, I just wanted her to, because I remember watching either deleted scenes or the extended cut where I was like, they were right. This part with them like going on that little mission is like, and then coming back, like that's just off. Like I don't like that.
Well, that and the extra nudity.
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe I'll
Yeah.
get back on it. No. Bill Murray.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't remember all this extra nudity of the ladies when they're in the house.
Oh yeah.
When they go in the house and he's using the kitchen utensils on her and stuff, and the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
thing you know, she's like basically, completely nude, like bouncing around, jumping around. Like I don't remember the extended. Like this must be
Yeah.
extended because it was really cut from
Yeah.
this part, and I think that's really that point
Uh huh.
was exactly what my wife said was it could have done without. Like she goes, you can really tell how old this movie is
Uh huh.
by the fact that they just exploited like the women bouncing around, boobs, everything. Like it was ridiculous. And I was like, well, you'll never want to watch Porky's.
And Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so, and I thought about it. I go, yeah, if we would have watched the actual regular cut, she probably would have liked it better.
It goes from Aunt Jemima to them playing the game of don't break my force field. He breaks her force field. They start making out. Cuts to the next morning. They come out of the the thing at the bottom of the bed, and she's wearing like a gown, a nightgown, and but yeah, it was. I liked the Aunt Jemima scene. They said was all that was improv, where they just said go with this. And what I like that I can see when I read about like him picking Harold Ramis because him and Bill Murray work good together for improv. Just like I'm sure Chris Makepeace, it's like they said about Bruce Willis when Bruce Willis was on Cop Out, that his humor was stuck like my musical sense stuck in the 80s. And so he was trying to make jokes and improv up against somebody like what's that guy's name, the black guy that was with him on there, Tracy Morgan.
Yeah,
So
Morgan.
he's trying to be as right up there with Tracy Morgan, and it's just falling flat where it's not very funny. Where somebody like Harold Ramis and Bill Murray, you're like good. And I like that scene when he's like you do 5 push-ups. And he's like, okay. And then he goes, well, he gets up to 3, and he goes, so there's 3. And then he goes, and 3. And he goes, no. And he looks at him. He goes, okay, 4.
4.
And then, and then he goes, here, you just doubled your money. And it's a whole thing of them just having that talk that just works like improv, just so good. And that you could, somebody like Bill Murray and other people, probably Will Ferrell and stuff, that just kind of try things and throw things out. Melissa McCarthy, I think, too. And it's like, you'll see that if you watch the deleted scenes on their movies. It's just like added stuff that they try to spitball and throw out there. Yeah. But it's really good if you can work that back and forth. If you're good with the person you're with, then you get it. And I like when are you guys homosexuals? No, but we are willing to learn. Yeah. And is there a place where you send us? And the guy like rolls his eyes and goes, no. Oh, but something else. So being as I've seen this movie so much, but unfortunately I didn't own it, so I went and bought it. It was $6.50 or $5. I mean, that on there. I'm watching it, and there's a part where they're singing, what a great place to start, when they're singing the army thing, and it's the sunset. Yeah. And all of a sudden it just cuts. Right as he says, like, start, then it jumps to the scene of Stillman looking at the girls taking a shower. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And my wife goes, what? And I go, no. I go, there's something wrong. I go, that edit was bad. I go, it should have went right. And she goes, what was wrong? Like, she didn't notice it. And I had to rewind to make sure the timer was right, that I didn't have a skip. And and maybe it's because the extended version will jump to the other scenes, and maybe right about then it has a weird jump, but the time was still right. But it happened there, and then it happened again on another spot where it jumped, and I was like, what? And I had to check it, and I'm like, okay. But she didn't notice it. But anyway. And then with it, I don't have it with me, but with my DVD, when I bought it, even though it was used, I opened it up and it has an EM50 in there on the paper, and you pull the paper out and you cut it, and then you fold it down and you make the little, the little RV. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm like, look, honey, I go, I doubt I'll do this, but it took all this intricate cutting, and then I'm like, oh, now I got to tape it together. But anyway, it was kind of cool that somebody left that in there. I was like, oh, okay.
Sweet.
But what do you got? What are your? I mean, I have favorite spots that I'll tell you also, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's, the thing that main focus is, like you said, them coming in to basically the army training, sir. You know, that whole sequence was amazing. And I totally, like, once it was done, I was like, I honestly don't remember how much is left of the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know there's something with the RV thing, and I was like, but the main thing that I always remember
Yeah.
is that scene. That's my favorite scene. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of like, okay, like
Yeah.
we're going. But what was cool was, at least at that point, once it started going, you start, realizing how many people from SCTV were
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome, the connection between the SNL people and the,
Yeah.
SCTV. I totally forgot that Judge Reinhold was in it at all.
Oh yeah.
And then John Larroquette, I think I just knew him as being that guy for so long. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same situation where later on you're watching Night Court, all that type of stuff, and you're not even thinking about,
Yeah.
So then you go back and watch this movie, you're like, holy crap, that's him. You're
Yeah.
like, what?
No, and we need to pay a little. Let's pause for a moment to give him some respect, because he's a guy that I remember when I saw this movie. You didn't like him. You're like, I hate that guy. Not as much as the fucking guy from. Not as much as the red-haired older guy from First Blood, who I fucking hate because he was the one with the fire extinguisher water that was squirting on Rambo, and you're like, leave him alone. And even the other red-haired guy, David Caruso's like, hey man, he's a war vet, and he's like, fucking guy, and you're like, Jesus. Anyway, I hate that guy. But it's because that actor's only been in maybe that movie and something else. I got to look him up. But with this Larroquette, you're like, I don't like that guy. And then when he's in Night Court, you're still like, you don't like his character, but he's funny.
Yeah.
And then you see him in like Blind Date, and you're like, okay, he's really funny.
Yep.
And what I love is when he shows up, they're in Italy, they're watching the EM50, and he's like, it sucks that we're stuck here in this thing. It'd be good if we could go pick up the girls in Germany and drive around. And he's like, no. And he goes, come on. And Harold Ram's like, okay. And then they get in the thing and they leave. And then John Larroquette shows up with that girl, and she's like, you going to buy me dinner? And he goes in, and he walks in, and he goes, what the fuck happened to my truck? And it's just hilarious, his delivery. And then he goes back to ask the guy, and the guy goes, I took it to get it washed, sir. He goes, took it to get it washed? It's like so great.
Yeah, because he's very much a physical comedy type person.
Yeah.
And you just don't realize, because I think a lot of Night Court, he just kind of stood there in a suit.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything physical to what he did. It was just all, them talking and being funny and everything. And then you realize how much he really did outside of that. That was just all physical comedy. The stuff that he did in Blind Date, like everything was just,
well,
it's all physical.
Even there's the little moments, like when you first meet him, and he's like, are those my men, whatever. And then he's walking out to get in the Jeep, and he trips over something. And it's improv just because the way it looks. He looks down at it, and he goes, and he turns to his aide, and he goes, get that removed. And it's like, it's probably something important, but you just want it removed. Like, and then they get in the Jeep and they drive away. And, but yeah, he's, I like that. I like the, they were saying something else that on one of my facts. Where was it? Oh, dang it. Hang on a minute. Sorry. John Larroquette broke his nose. Larroquette permanently scarred his nose running into a door in the scene where he discovers EM50 has been stolen.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So that was, probably going to rush in there, and I can't open it.
Yeah.
And then this one that... most of the cast was drunk for 2 weeks following John Lennon's death. John Larroquette, Captain Stillman, later admitted that he was drunk in the scene when he dressed down the company after they watched and participated in mud wrestling. Even after filming moved to Los Angeles, Murray and Warren Oates, Sergeant Holka, had a drunken evening beside the grave of late actor Strother Martin.
Oh, wow.
So I think Strother Martin. He used to be, I think, also in those Picani commercials with the other guy from was that with the guy from Blazing Saddles.
Oh,
You know, I think he was in one of the where he'd be like, get a rope. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was also in the Getaway, the original Getaway. But anyway, yeah, I love that they're a ragtag group, and it is like almost like the Delta Force is. We're Delta Force guys. Like I have a guy at my work, not that he's Delta Force, but a guy at my work who used to be in the Army. He was over there in Iraq, and his MRAP blew up, and he had PTSD and all this stuff, and he's working for us, and he wanted to get a job in like the independent sector, like being a contractor.
Yeah.
And so somebody said, hey, we got this job in Jordan to go work at a base where you'll just be at the front, you know. And so he's like, oh, so all the contractors he knows can always like grow out their beards and be, you know. So he started growing his beard out. And then the guy tells him like, oh, yeah, you got to go back to a little bit of training and you're going to have to go through the gas chamber again. And so you need to make sure that there's no facial hair so you can get a seal on your mask. And he's like, what the fuck? Like all the guys I met over there that were like Delta Force and all these contractors, they all had these beards. And I was like, I want a beard. And he goes, and now they're like, you got to shave. He goes, so I was like, can I still seal it? Like, you know, and they were like, oh, let us check. So they had to check. But it's one of those where the ragtag group, like, yeah, you're just going to be like, you know, but yeah, it shouldn't work, but it works. And even though everybody's kind of laughing at him and like, what the fuck, they're going to embarrass us. And then they pull it off and you're just like, oh, so cool. And the thing of them all getting to know each other, like that was all kind of improv with him, like saying he's our big toe. Hulk is our big toe. And, you know, and this guy, Lee Harvey, from what you told me, you and that cow, like, oh my God.
Yeah. And the look on his face when he was like, what did he say? And then all of a sudden he smiles. Like,
yeah. He's like, oh, you're me. Yeah, you took me. Yeah, it's like, oh, so good. And then, like you said, John Candy, Joe Flaherty, Dave Thomas, like all them. Because even watching that last night, I was going to grab for my phone, but I didn't. But I'm going to look up SCTV if I can get the whole complete collection. Because I remember seeing some of those that are ingrained in my head. I remember they did a Andy Griffith. And my dad loves Andy Griffith, and they did it so good. And my dad was like, "Oh my God!" Like it was, I can't think of who. Yeah, I think Rick Moranis was played Barney, and
Nice.
you know it was just, and maybe Joe Flaherty is Andy Griffith, but it was really good. And that's something where SCTV you couldn't explain to somebody now. Like it's not going to probably be funny, or people go, "Oh, that's Martin Short. That's blah blah blah." But like they've said, doing that show it's so underground. Like they didn't even know that it did anything until all of a sudden people are going, hey, I saw your show late night on TV, because it was Canadian TV. And they were like, we're just having fun. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, so it's pretty cool. But, okay, I got some facts. You want to hear some facts, or what do you got? Go ahead. Go ahead. I see your mouth moving.
I just have one thing. Well, actually, kind of two things. One thing I wanted to say, but the guy that played Psycho, aka Francis,
Don't call me
I
Francis.
didn't realize
Call me
until I'd
Francis.
seen him.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't realize until after, like, I saw him again, and I'm like, what is he from? And I looked it up. All the times that you know, I basically, you know, was home from, you know, school or whatever, or sick or whatever, or anytime like during the summer or whatever, when it was too hot out in Arizona to go frickin' do anything without dying.
Yeah.
My mom watching Days of Our Lives. He was
really?
He was on Days of Our Lives. He played Nick Corelli. He was like the kind of a thug street type kind of a dude, I believe. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah. Like I guess he was on there for quite a while, and I don't know if he won any awards or anything, but he was on there for a while.
Well, and go ahead. I was just going to say it's interesting with, like, I was in Days of Our Lives when me and Chris would hang out all the time. She would record Days of Our Lives, so I would go over there and I'd end up watching it. And I was like, this is stupid, soap opera. Why am I watching this? And then I'm like, hey, why is Mr. Brady? What are the Bradys doing? Like, what are, you know, or whatever. Yeah. And then I'm like, what happened to her? Why is she such a bitch? You know, and then all of a sudden you find out that, you know, that guy who was in Starship Troopers, like he used to be You know, he was like the one that Denise Richards was seeing and thing. Anyway, he used to be on there, and you find out like all these people, and yeah, you kind of look at him, and because he was on a Monk episode the other day, and I was like, hey, that's that guy from Days of Our Lives. Yeah. But anyway, okay, I'm sorry.
And I guess the only other feeling that I got from it that I realized was that the way that Bill Murray and the sergeant were towards each other kind of made me get feelings of the police academy. That was kind of like I just kind of had that feeling that that's how
well, and even my wife, when Sergeant Hulka came in after he got out of the hospital and his hands were all bandaged up, and I'm like, honey, look, it's Hulka. You know, I'm telling her everything that if you were sitting there, I wouldn't have to tell you. There's Hulka coming back. You'd be like, yeah, fucking no, I've seen this movie 70 times. So I go, here's Hulka coming back. She goes, oh, is that guy from Police Academy? And I'm like, no, this is somebody. I go, that's Hulka, who we just. She goes, oh, that was a sorry. I go, yeah. She goes, okay, but he was in his dress greens, and she didn't get it. So she was like, oh, but yeah, it was well. And I remember when I first saw that movie, I don't like that, and I probably because I don't like confrontation. So I'm so laid back. I'm like, I don't like that. But it was it goes on this other it's almost like Officer and a Gentleman style, but not, where he's really pushing him and he's ready to fucking break open and like be like, fuck you, like I'm going to kill you. And all of a sudden, like it kind of works where then, you know, it worked out perfect where then, you know, if you're writing that script, you go, okay, we'll have this mortar explosion and then he'll be gone. And now they got to get through, you know, the graduation by themselves.
Yeah.
And that whole, like we said, leading up to the graduation, that whole scene of him, you know, boosting morale in everybody, like, you know, that's so great. And then them just oversleeping, you're like, oh shit, all this training and they fucked it up. Like now they just overslept. Yeah. And then just them getting there, like running there, you're like, and even for you and I who love that scene, and I'm sure a lot of people do, we're going, hurry up and get, like, they're like, where, you know, Harold Ramis goes, where is it? And he goes, it's this way. And you're just going, oh my God, hurry up and get there. I can't wait. And, even though it's so small of a scene, it's just works out so good where it's just, it makes you go, yeah, it's like I said, those rooting, you know, that Zorro thing, like the thing that just makes you go, fuck yeah. Like,
and I think it was a good anchor because when you think about how much of it was probably improvised and the stuff that Murray did, but that whole scene was so intricate that they all had to learn it perfectly to pull off the scene. And it's like, you know, to go from being we can just, you know, kind of just breeze our way through this movie with, you know,
we'll just do improv.
Do that.
No, it's well, and then there's a part at the end, not to jump to the end, but when the RV, when they're lowering the gate, when they're picking everybody up, and Harold Ramis is standing there like, what happened? I don't know if he's going, what happened? Did I blow up the tank? But he looks at like the gun, and then he's looking at his gun. He's just like, what? Okay, come on, you know. And it's just, you know. But yeah, Harold Ramis is good. Sean Young, before she went batty, because Tim Burton promised her, you know, she thought she was Bill Murray, who could just make a verbal agreement and be like, okay, I'll be there. I'll be Catwoman. And then Tim Burton goes, no, I'm getting Michelle Pfeiffer. But I was thinking about what would her Catwoman have been like? Like, what if that was even better than Michelle? What if her Catwoman would be as cool as Heath Ledger's Joker? Like, what if it, like, oh, that would have been, because she's a good actress. I like her. But she just went crazy. But some of the, we were talking about Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis and Columbia Pictures did not want Harold Ramis in the movie. With the knowledge that the studio didn't want him and more comfortable with writing at that point than with acting, Ramis was reluctant. Oh yeah, he didn't want himself in there either. He was reluctant to play Russell. He even had Dennis Quaid, PJ Soles' husband at the time, read for his part. Bill Murray stepped in and insisted that he only wanted to work with Ramis.
Oh, wow.
That would have been different with Dennis Quaid.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's what's weird, though, is that the fight between Harold Ramis and Murray in Groundhog Day,
Uh-huh.
like it was the first time Ramis actually got physical with him and threw him up against the wall.
Yeah.
And that was what stopped their friendship for 20 something years. And I just read that in Ramis's daughter's memoir thing, um, she said that before her father died, he could barely speak. He was at that point.
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden, Murray showed up unannounced, 7 a.m. in the morning with a box of donuts and a police escort, just in case.
Wow. Yeah.
And kind of more of a joke, I guess.
Yeah.
But the door opened up, and I guess they just basically did not talk about what happened. They did not rehash the past bullshit, and they basically just talked and had fun together for a few hours, and then he left.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's why Bill Murray's everybody's spirit animal. Like, he's just such a good person. That's where what was it? I was gonna go on and find that thing, but the Defense Department liked the script, so they gave the crew a ton of access, including allowing Ivan Reitman and company to shoot in Fort Knox and letting real troops play extras.
Oh, damn. Nice.
And Murray was uneasy about making a movie where he carried a machine gun. He reasoned with himself that if guns were used to save your friends, it was okay. Army recruitment numbers went up after the movie was released by about 10%.
Nice.
Holka was supposed to die. The fall from the high platform was meant to be fatal. The character and actor were too well liked for that part of the script to not change. And that was one where he's like, and he's like, "Sir, are we still going to continue training?" He's like, "Okay."
Started choking him.
And that's another thing. I know it's just an acting thing, but when Hulka punches Bill Murray in the restroom, he looks like he really has the wind knocked out of him. Like, you believe it. Like, he's just like holding his side, and he's like, and he does that face like from Caddyshack, like, hey, yeah. It's like, oh my god. Kentucky doubled for Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakian scenes were filmed at the Jim Beam owned Chapriz Distillery in Claremont, Kentucky. Ramis said that the third act was set in the country because Reitman's family were Czech refugees. And this part was funny. Larroquette ad-libbed the I wish I was a loofah. Reitman told Larroquette to improvise stuff to say while looking at naked women in the shower. He came up with I wish I was a loofah. After Reitman yelled cut, he asked the actor what a loofah was.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then a 9-minute acid trip scene was shot but cut. John and Russell took LSD and went on a mission to fight rebels in the Colombian jungle. Reitman didn't think it fit with the tone of the rest of the picture. A scene with Cruiser and Hulka was cut too. Cruiser pulled a grenade pin and counted too slowly before losing count entirely. Hulka then grabbed it and out of his hand and threw it to save their lives. So, and then Deal, the guy from Miami Vice, same guy, Cruiser, was paid $1,500 a week to play Cruiser. The young actor was very happy with the salary. And Murray and John Candy had different approaches to bond with the platoon. Murray arranged a screening of the 1968 film The Beaufar's Gun, a dark military drama set in West Germany following World War II. Candy invited the company to his house to watch the famous Roberto Duran Sugar Ray Leonard fight and enjoy a spaghetti dinner made by his wife.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And only Candy and Psycho knew the lyrics to Do Wah Diddy. Conrad Dunn, Psycho, recalled that he and Candy had to teach the rest of the outfit, like how to sing that song, like what the words were. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was funny. But so what are some of your favorite scenes other than that graduation scene?
I don't know. I actually liked, for the time frame, the actual fighting. Like, it didn't look too fake. You know what I'm saying? It didn't look like. Cause I was afraid that when it got to that point and they were actually using the weapons on the RV, and then when they were running around with the guns, that it was going to look like really like toy gun kind of a situation where they're just kind of looking around corners going, what do we do? What do we do? And it actually looked good. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't feel weird watching this. It actually kind of fills out the rest of the movie properly.
Well, yeah, and it works to make like it's now almost a serious military thing, but with comedy in it. Like it was, But another scene that I like when the Czechoslovakia pulls them over, stops them at the roadblock, and then they go around and they throw open the tarp, and there they all are with guns, and then right away John Candy goes, "Here you go," and like flips it around and gives it to him, and they give them all over. It's like, oh, it's hilarious.
But I did like the consistency thing with the Flaherty and the coffee. Just every time coffee was like,
yeah. Oh, Joe Flaherty, so good. That and just and then something else where I don't know. So we talked about music, and I sent you the thing that I told you me and Robert talked about on the last show about music and movies and things, and we talked about the theme, but in there, when they go into the mud wrestling thing, Rubber Band Man is playing. And I fucking love Rubber Band Man. Ding, 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 like, and just right. And so it's playing, but there's all this other stuff going on. So you're watching them. But this time I was like, oh, that's Rubber Band Man. I do remember this song playing. And then before John Candy goes to wrestle, then the song cuts, song's over. And now it's just them wrestling. And so I'm like, do I love Rubber Band Man because of Stripes? Or do, it's one of those. Yeah. So it's like, it's a good song, but still it's one of those where I go, I wonder.
Well, it's the same thing talking about the old music stuff too.
Yeah.
Is that you connect it with past things, and that's why you like hold on to it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with movies. There are certain things that you just hold on to because it reminds you of those moments in movies where you're like, that was amazing.
Yeah. That's where I sent you that clip from Star Trek 2, and I was telling Robert, I was talking about Quentin Tarantino. And I said, stuck in the middle with you forever now. When you hear that, you think of Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
All those songs that are specifically in movies for a big reason. What were you going to say?
Have you watched any of the Umbrella Academy?
No, not yet. I started to. I watched the first episode.
Okay.
And
so I was at work, and all of a sudden, Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now started playing. And I automatically thought of the scene that they start playing that, and everybody in the house starts dancing, like in their own separate rooms. They're all dancing to that song. And I'm sitting here like at work going, damn it. And that was, that's the same type of a thing where you just connect with the scene so much that you're just like, it's connected to that song now forever. Anytime I hear I Think We're Alone Now, boom, I'm going to be thinking of that scene from Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's what I think about. I've talked about it before, but on this show here that I do, whatever, is we talk about these old movies or movies that we love, and that's what I like is like, it's either like you've said, like, I haven't seen that for a while, I'm going to rewatch it, and you either go, oh, that doesn't hold up like I remember, like Legend of Lone Ranger, or you go, or with the Zorro one, you go, that's still funny. It made me laugh out loud like that, and it's not like Stripes where you've seen it so much. Zorro the Gay Blade was more like, oh, I don't remember. Oh, that was funny, But that's what I like about that. I love about movies is just that you can have a conversation with anybody about movies usually because they're like, oh yeah, did you like this movie? No, yeah, whatever. Like I said, that young guy that I was training who was like, I never saw Fight Club and I never saw Seven, and I'm like, what the fuck? Are you serious?
Well, I guess that's the big thing is that with the age thing, that's where it comes in, where you start realizing when you talk to some people, you're like, there's a point where you've lost them, where you're talking about movies that they're just like, I have no clue what you're talking about. You're like, really? I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm talking to kids that are like, I've never watched a single Star Wars, and I'm like, what now?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Oh my God, like I need to go sit down.
Where do we find their bodies? That's the other thing with, like, you watch new movies and everything, it might be, the way, how is the world going? How is movie going? Because now you got, like I said, and I think it was you that I was talking to about that kid who didn't know Fight Club. He didn't know Heat. He didn't know any of those. And I said, what kind of movies do you like? He goes, I love the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they're good, but, you know, there's other things out there. Like, and he was like, no, I know, but, you know, but for 10 years he's been watching those, and that's what he loves. And that was since he was 10 years old or, you know, 12. So it was like, oh my God, like there's more stuff. And it's tricky because it's just but it's almost to go even back further. It's like me talking about, like I was watching some Harold Lloyd. I told my wife, I go, you going to bed? I got that Criterion channel and they have Harold Lloyd on there. He's a silent film actor with the glasses. And he's in Safety Last. He was hanging from the clock. So I go, I'm going to watch that. She goes, okay. So I put it on. I'm watching it. And I don't like him as well as, I've only seen 3 of his films now, but I don't like him as much as Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, Lauren Hardy. Yeah. And so, but I'm watching him, but I'm going, this is like a 100-year-old film that I'm watching. It's like a 25-minute movie from 1919. Yeah. And it's like, but nobody else, you know, but I like to watch it because now I've seen it. But now you can't go to somebody, those kids who've never seen Star Wars, and go, you know, Harold Lloyd, and at least you knew the image of Harold Lloyd. They're going to go, Harold Lloyd, that sounds like Chinese to me. I don't know what you're saying, you know. Yeah. And it's but then it goes back to, you know, then you go, like you and I were saying, like my wife said what she thought Stripes was going to be was like that Charlie Sheen movie. She said, these are her words. And I said, Platoon? And she goes, how did she say it? The Charlie Sheen movie. She had confused 2 movies. Oh, yeah, the Charlie Sheen movie, Good Morning Vietnam. I said, no, that was Robin Williams, and Charlie Sheen was in Platoon. And she goes, but that was not a comedy, right? I go, right. She goes, yeah, I thought it was going to be like that. I said, no. I go, this was, you know, this was comedy. She's like, okay. And it's that thing of going to that. I went to that because if you mention anybody, Tom Berenger, oh, Tom Berenger's great and whatever, they're going to go, who's Tom Berenger? You know, because they didn't grow up with Sniper and, you know, Platoon and all that. But now here comes the dilemma, and then we'll end the show because I don't want to go too long with everybody and with you, is so you're listening to newer music. I told you I try to get into the new music. Some of it I can, you know. Some of it I get. My wife and I are driving in the car one day a couple of years ago when that Justin Bieber song, you know, I don't like you, she likes everyone, you know, or whatever. You know, talk about his girlfriend. So basically go and fuck yourself. But or no, that's the other guy. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's pretty much the same song. But we would sing to it, and me and when we were with the nieces and nephews, like they're all singing. Mm-hmm. And we're like, I can't believe we're singing to fucking Justin Bieber. But it's written by Ed Sheeran, so we can agree that this is good. We're not listening for Justin Bieber. So, but it's that thing of I can watch new movies and be like, okay, that was really cool. Mm-hmm. But with music, I really can't. But that's almost, you know, although music is probably more your thing. I like music a lot. But your thing has always been like this big, mine's an eclectic taste, but it's from the, you know, stuff that I grew up on or whatever, like not really new stuff. Anyway, what I'm getting at is the movies. Like, how do you, like for you and I, having this old conversation about music, it could almost be the same with, what movie you guys doing? Meatballs and Stripes. Oh, okay, so you're doing movies that are like, you know, 40 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why don't you do something new? Or, you know, and I think with my show also, I think that's what happens is people pick and choose where they're like, some people are like I do with Mark Maron and those others where I go, I don't really care about, you know, Tom Welling's 3rd appearance on Michael Rosenbaum, but I'll listen to Elvira, Cassandra Peterson or whatever. And I think that's people look at my thing and they go, oh, Meatballs and Stripes, no. Or they go, oh, Space Race, okay, you know, or whatever. So it's, you know, I don't know. We're just old, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, I'm sorry, I'm talking in a circle. But I'm trying to get deep into something, but I can't think of how to put it and what I'm trying to get at.
Gotcha.
But it's, but there's something. First of all, the love of movies is great. Second of all, on a side note for my podcast, I made it now. I had a hard time figuring out like my description wouldn't change. So it was what I thought I was going to do when I first came out with the podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about things that are on Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. And I don't know, I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah.
And then that's all that was on Apple for a long time. And I was like, how do I change that? And I wrote Apple. Apple didn't respond. Nobody responded. I'm like, because I'm thinking most people have iPhones, and they're going to look at their podcast, and they're going to go to check the description before they listen, and they don't know what the show's about. So I finally figured out how to get into Podbean and change that, even though it was as simple as fuck. And I was like, how did I miss this? Change that. And then the next day it was changed on iTunes. So now it explains what we do. So it's really good. But it's that thing. There's so many movie podcasts out there. But that's why, because people love movies and can have this passionate talk about, like Joe Merle wrote me about the Robert Jones. I told you I wasn't sure about the Robert Jones podcast. I said, it was okay. It was Edgar Wright. It was all right. And then Joe Merle was like, hey, all the passion came through. Like, it was really good. He said his audio was whatever, but it was really good. And I was like, oh. So then I re-listened to it, and I was like, oh, yeah, there was a lot of information in there, and we talked all about, what we loved. So, so it was really cool. But anyway, I guess I'm just keep talking. I should shut up.
Well, as far as that goes, is like you're talking about, there are going to be those people that straight up just look for, say, just Marvel movies.
Yeah.
They just want a podcast about people's insights into that.
Yeah.
Specific niche, genre type things or whatever. And then there are going to be that group of people that are basically just like us.
Yeah.
That are wanting that nostalgia feeling, that and yeah, they're going to be our age, and that's going to be the way it is, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're looking for. That's what we want to do, is incite the feeling and make them go, I got to go watch that fucking movie right now.
Well, here's a cool story that I'll tell now. Thank you for reminding me of that. So I did that Gay Pride Directors, and so I did it on a girl named Dorothy Arzner, who there's 3 films on Criterion Channel. I need to still watch the third one, but she's a female director in the 30s and 40s. Like, amazing that there's a female director. But, of course, everybody's over in war. And right before, like in 46, she was like, okay, I'm done. Like, she knew when to stop it because men are going to come in and push her out anyway.
Yeah.
But she lived openly gay and all this stuff. And then Charles Laughton was bisexual. And Charles Laughton only directed 1 film. He's a great actor who, if you listen to the show, I had a little thing on there that was Daniel Day-Lewis said that he's his favorite actor to watch of those times because he's really good, Charles Laughton. And then he directed 1 movie, and it was called The Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum. Mm-hmm. And so I had talked about that on the thing, and then Brant texted me and was like, oh, I've never seen Night of the Hunter, so I don't know if I want to listen because I haven't seen it. And I said, dude, it's on Netflix. Like, you should watch it. Like, go watch it. And he was like, okay. And when he was done, he wrote this whole big old text about, dude, the lighting in that, the directing, the acting, like everything was spot on. Like, thank you for making me watch that. And I was like, well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And then same thing, like you said, inspiring. And what my whole point of the show is Joe Merle writes me and goes, dude, that was a great episode. Now I want to rewatch The Night of the Hunter. Like, it's so good. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, I go, that's what I'm looking for, is for people to go, I haven't seen Meatballs, I'm going to watch it. It was okay, or, whatever. Or Stripes, like, yeah, it's a classic. So, anyway, yeah, that's
well, and even with watching those 2 movies, just us talking about it, if they go in and watch them, then they might come back and respond and say, I didn't know about that point in time in the 80s. Yeah. That where that fit, like, that's awesome. I got to experience that and got to see the evolution of Bill Murray.
Well, and as I get this with my wife, and you get it with your wife. My wife's 10 years younger than me. Yours is 30 years younger than you, which is crazy because she's like 17. I'm like, what? No, what?
13.
13. She's 13. Wow. Chip's wife is 13. Hello, Hello, how you doing, Jerry Lee Lewis? So anyway, sorry, side note. So yeah, my wife's 10 years younger than me. Yours is 13. So when you watch these old movies, you and I know how we felt when we watched them back then, why they're good. But now to watch them with new eyes and go, wow, this is really dated, you know, you try to pull yourself out of it, but sometimes you can. It's like me, I'm going to watch An American Werewolf in London tonight, and I think all I've seen is the transformation scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it used to be, I thought it was boring, so I never finished it, and I didn't like horror movies back then as much. And I was like you, I would watch Nightmare on Elm Street because it was funny and it was kind of had a different take on it. And so now, you know, like I said, I'm watching Friday the 13th. I'm going to watch An American Werewolf, but I'll be able to see this 1981 film and see if it still holds up, you know. But then there's movies from, so I guess I shouldn't even say that because there's movies. 1960, I watched Eyes Without a Face, a French film, and it held up. Like I was like, holy shit, that was creepy and atmospheric, like all this stuff. So I'm not going, this is dated, you know. But also there's people who just go, this is in French. I'm not going to read it, you know. Okay, you got anything to promote or anything? Walmart? Nope. You want to talk about Walmart? Everybody go to Walmart in Colorado. Chip will be at one of them.
At one of them,
yeah.
find me.
Yeah, no,
I'll be the one wearing the Walmart vest.
Yeah, there you go. Look for the guy in the blue vest. Be like, are you Chip? They'll be like, no. The old guy that's greeting you at the front, that's Chip.
Yeah, sure.
Which is funny with those greeters, like, you walk out with your bag of stuff, you're like, you want to see my receipt? They're like, no, go ahead. You're like, what the fuck? Like, your point is to be here to kind of protect the store.
Yeah.
Okay, well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show, and I don't know what's coming next. I'm trying to do the Jason Bromley show where we're going to do 2 Degrees of Fred Ward, and we're going to do Tremors and Adventures of Remo Williams. The thing with that is, just like Stripes, I don't own Tremors, but I fucking should because it's a fucking great movie. It's just like Terminator, solid, like just perfect film almost. So good. Everybody go see Tremors. But anyway, so we'll either do that, and then Chip and I will be back at the end of the month for Shark Week for Meg and Jaws. Chip has never seen Jaws all the way through.
Nope.
So hopefully that'll be good and not dated, and you'll go, what the hell? Why did they not show the shark? And I'll be like, because it was a shitty shark and it kept breaking down, which worked out better for the film because Spielberg had a film around it and it made it more suspenseful because all you saw was a fin and you just, you know, the barrel scene is my favorite. And now...
So Jaws was the equivalent of, what was it, Salem's Lot, the original? Where like you never actually saw anything happen. It was like creeping up at the vampire, and all of a sudden it cut away. And you're like, son of a
yeah. Well, that was like on Friday the 13th. There were a couple of those where he'd show up with a machete and he'd stab somebody, but maybe you wouldn't see him stab or get their throat cut because the camera would go up to their eyes or something. They'd be like, and I was like, is this edited for Amazon or did they just not have? But then some of it they would show, but some of it they wouldn't. So it was just like, okay, I know that they died, but yeah, it's that thing of sometimes when you're stuck with nothing to do, you figure out a way around it, and then you're like, you know, and now it made me think about how you and I have had these discussions, and I've talked about music and film, and I've talked about the barrel scene from Jaws, and you've been like, but now I know that you have no fucking idea what I'm talking about.
No, I've seen, I've seen that actual scene. Like that's what I'm saying. I've only seen like the famous like
right. We're gonna need a bigger boat, the barrels, and maybe the end.
Yeah, and I think that was pretty much all I've seen. I haven't like anything else is just kind of like you said, if it's been stuff that's like been leading up to a suspenseful thing, then I probably haven't seen it because I was like, okay, you know, I've only seen like the most famous like cuts.
And if you guys heard my Alien episode, Chip was the one who was like, I haven't watched the Alien movies. They're too scary for me. Like Chip and I have no anxiety. We're like really laid back, but Chip's getting older now. He's getting a little more anxiety. But he used to be the type like, no, I'll watch Nightmare on Elm Street because I can laugh and it's funny, but I can't watch like suspenseful, like it gets him crazy. And I was like, what do you mean? You've never seen Aliens? And when Joe and I were doing James Cameron shows, like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean you've never seen Aliens? Like the best film ever. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So yeah, it's that thing of like, I don't want to see Jaws because I'm afraid. Like, it was like me watching The Thing, which someday we'll do The Thing. But I saw The Thing. We rented it on beta. We're in my mom and dad's room. We're getting ready to watch. We're watching it. This dog that runs into camp. They have it locked in a cell, and it splits open. It opens its mouth. It's howling. All the other dogs are howling. The dog splits totally open, becomes this alien, and I'm like, oh, like that disturbed me. I remember that image in my head forever. Like I was just like, ooh, and I had to walk out of the room and go into the living room and put on something funny, which was the Bob Newhart show, which is above my sense of humor. But I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to make myself laugh and forget that image. And that's the thing that also we're going to do. I don't know who I'm going to do it with. We're trying to figure it out. But those scenes, like you and I said, like body double, the drill through the floor. I was talking
that
to
got me was the drill through the floor.
Robert Jones said the little spiders in Runaway like freaked him out. Like he doesn't like spiders, and like that just freaked him out. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And I'm thinking, well, how did you do with Minority Report? Because that was, remember they came into that was so fucking good. I got a Minority Report. We got to do something with Minority Report.
And so those scenes, though, like you're saying, how it affects you.
Yeah.
The reason why I did not watch The Shining for the longest time was because when I was like really, really little, and my sister was, babysitting me basically, but she brought her friends over to watch The Shining. So I had my face in the couch.
Yeah.
And I looked up at the worst possible time when the blood is just coming down the steps. And I'm like, freaked out. So there's that.
Yeah.
And then when I was younger, this first scene that I ever saw of any of the Friday the 13th was two people having sex on a cot. And all of a sudden he puts like a spear through both of them. And I'm like, ah!
Oh, yeah.
That was enough. I was like, nope.
Yeah, I just watched that one. That was great. And that's what else. Joe Merle, he's not doing it late, but he's doing like best kill. I wrote him and I said, you should do like best kills in horror films. And I'm getting more into horror films now, where I used to, growing up, it was kind of okay. And still now I'm like, I'm not going to run out and see Annabelle, but I'll go see other things. But my wife kind of likes those horror movies. But I'm getting more into those. So I say you should do like the best kills. And there's a movie, if you're really disturbed by things, check out Terrifier. Don't watch it with your wife. Terrifier on Netflix. It's this killer clown, totally silent, creepy clown. You'll see him on the image of the art box. But please at least look it up. There's a scene in there. I'm going to go ahead and tell you just to get you prepared, and then I really want you to watch it and come back next time. They got this girl tied up. Don't watch it with your wife. She'll totally be like, why is she naked? They got this woman tied up by her ankles and her wrist, and she can't move. She's got panties on, but no top. The clown takes a hacksaw and starts cutting between her legs all the way down her body and then like to the side of her neck, and she comes apart in two. And it's like a really good like special effect. Like they do it, but also where you're going, oh, ouch. like, and so like that's my number one like worst kill. Like that one is like, oof. Like I told him, I go, you definitely. And then there was a bunch, like you said, on Friday the 13th. Like there was one of a hatchet in a girl's face and a machete in a guy's face, and real good. But yeah.
Okay, one more that was traumatizing for me. It was Poltergeist, when his face just started like.
Oh yeah, he's picking at his face, and then all of a sudden keeps going, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I think that's on Amazon or Netflix. But yeah, I've been wanting to do that one too. And then Chip and I talked about maybe doing a Ready Player One and The Last Starfighter.
Yeah.
Because they're both kind of like about, pull the sword from the stone type things. So, and Chip has never seen Ready Player One, so I'm excited about that. 2 Spielberg movies Chip has never seen. Then we'll do War Horse and Abraham Lincoln. No, I'm kidding. Chip's like, I'm not watching Lincoln. There's some things that my co-hosts will go, no, I'm not gonna. That's why I go, what do you want to do? And then they make the choice. Or if I, pick something cool, but I'm never gonna go, hey, you want to do that French film, Eyes Without a Face? And you'll go, no, I gotta read it. No. So, but anyway, okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us until 2 weeks. I'm Philip, and until whenever,
I'm Chip.
We're all very different people. We're not Watusi. We're not Spartans. We're Americans with a capital A, huh? You know what that means? Do you? That means that our forefathers were kicked out of every decent country in the world. We are the wretched refuse. We're the underdog. We're mutts. Here's proof. His nose is cold. But there's no animal that's more faithful, that's more loyal, more lovable than the mutt. Who saw Old Yeller? Who cried when Old Yeller got shot at the end? Nobody cried when Old Yeller got shot, I'm sure. I cried my eyes out. So we're all dog faces. We're all very, very different. But there is one thing that we all have in common. We were all stupid enough to enlist in the Army. We're mutants. There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us. Something seriously wrong with us. We're soldiers. But we're American soldiers. We've been kicking ass for 200 years. We're 10 and 1. Now, we don't have to worry about whether or not we've practiced. We don't have to worry about whether Captain Stillman wants to have us hung. All we have to do is to be the great American fighting soldier that is inside each one of us. Now do what I do and say what I say and make me proud.